What's up, good people? Welcome to the Ladder Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Strickland. I got a fire episode for you today. If you are a leader, you're in the right place because this is the place you come to get developed. Today, I want to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, college basketball, and something we can learn about their coaches, their new structure of how the players are paid, and how that impacts leadership. I've been watching the tournament. It's like one of my favorite times of the year, just being honest. I absolutely love March Madness. I got 5 men's brackets, 3 women's brackets. I'm locked into all the games. And I just love the Cinderellas. I love the storyline. I love the opportunities that players get on the men's and women's side to play themselves into NBA or WNBA players. It's just a fun time of the year. And one of the things, though, that has come up, and this has kind of been swirling around college basketball all year, particularly on the men's side. I haven't seen a lot on the women's side, but particularly on the men's side, it's been this tension where because players are getting paid certain amounts of money, coaches are really struggling to coach these players. And so let's talk about, this is a book called Modern Day Slavery, right? And it's actually talking about professional athletes. But I think it's more appropriate or more applicable to college athletics in the past. And it's this ideal that because I give you certain incentives, so a scholarship or a dorm or a meal plan, you have to listen to me because I can take that away, right? And so we get this sense of ownership. Coaches had a sense of ownership of their programs and players because they control the bench and they control scholarships. NCAA Division I scholarships, you don't know, were year to year for the longest. I think that just changed, but I'm not 100% sure. But when I was in school, NCAA Division I, Division II, they were year to year scholarships. And so every March or April, coaches could decide if they were going to take your scholarship. And so for players, that means I had to give a certain level of respect to my coaches because I knew they could bench me, they could mess with my professional opportunities, like if I want to play in the NBA, and they could mess with my money, my college scholarship. And so, yes, I want to make sure I acknowledge something. Yes, college players have been getting paid for a long time under the table, but it was illegal. Right. And so we're just talking about the actual legality, a legal structure. Right. And so coaches were not held responsible for being great leaders because they had so much power. Right. And so let me unwrap this for a second for you. If you have too much power, you don't have to be a great leader to get people to do what you say. And so when we think about maybe like a parent-child relationship, right? If I control all the power, if I have all the power as the parent, which, I mean, I do, I don't necessarily have to be a good parent or a great parent to get you to do what I say, right? To get you to follow my directions or follow my orders. I don't have to be an excellent leader at all because I have so much power, right? I can literally disrupt your entire life. And so for coaches on a collegiate level, they had this power, this unchecked autonomous power. You don't know how many stories of players being lied to when they were recruited, just blatantly lied to. And then they get on campus and there's nothing they can do. They in a 360, right? They in a hell scholarship. And now what happens too is I get you here, I get you on scholarship. And if you don't play in my system, you don't do what I want you to do. Now other coaches look at you as like, maybe you're not ready to play. Maybe you're not good enough for this level. Maybe you have a character issue. They don't even know. It just might be your coach decided he didn't like you once you got on campus. And it used to be really bad because you would have to sit out a year when you transferred. And so the ideal of losing a year of eligibility or a year of playing your sport on top of losing a year of film, right, was enough to keep a lot of guys in check. And so even if the coach had lied to me or had over-recruited me or had or the system just didn't mesh, I was stuck. And so because I was stuck, I had to respect you. I had to listen to you. I had to play hard for you because this was my only option or my best option, right? Well, NILs and collective bargaining has completely changed that. So now players are making real money. We talking about millions of dollars. And I don't have a problem with players making money. they generate, I think the NCAA tournament generates over $1 billion. Like, I don't have any problem with college basketball players making money. But the issue is a lot of coaches are now having to deal with how do you lead when you don't have all the power? Because if I make $1 million, I don't necessarily gotta listen to you, right? Like, my check gonna clear. I got my car I drive probably better than yours, coach. Like, my house might be better than yours, coach. Like, the ideal is how do you lead? This is why NBA coaches are so much better than college coaches, and they always have been. Is because NBA coaches have never had this kind of power since the 80s. Since Mike signed that contract, the NBA coaches ain't had that kind of power. And so they've had to become leaders of men. And so the best coaches are able to motivate, inspire, and lead men who make $30 million a year, who make $40 million a year. That's an incredible lift, right? When we talk about the greatest leaders of the sport, they're in the NBA level. So for guys who think NBA coaches don't coach, you don't know what it's required. You don't understand how hard it is to get a dude who makes $36 million a year to make a third effort on defense. Like, you don't understand what is required from that. And so college coaches are getting a piece of that. Right? They just getting a piece of that and they losing their mind. Look at the press conferences after coaches lose. I just saw a buddy from UCLA. He's like, they entitled, they delusional, they this, they that. And the thing is he telling the truth? Yes. But what's your job? Your job is to get the delusional guy to box out. That's your job, is to get the guy who thinks he's as good as, an NBA player to get back on defense, to make the extra pass, to run the offense. That requires more from you. And so the less autonomous power you have, the more leadership is required. And this has always been the case. And I love college basketball, and I love watching some of these older coaches have to deal with that. And so it's always been a thing where there's always been certain coaches who I'm like, man, they are a dictator and they get away with it because they hold the cards. And now that they're not a dictator, I'm hearing stories and reading articles and watching their team, and they're struggling to get guys to make plays, to get guys to run the offense. They're struggling to get guys to buy in. And it's not because they are not leaders. It's just because they haven't had to develop and to utilize those forms of leadership. And so now, you know what I hear? And I heard from a couple press conferences of coaches who lost in the tournament. They said, hey, man, we're going to reevaluate our entire process when we're recruiting transfers and freshmen. And what they're saying is, it used to be we got the best players available, and because we knew when we got them on campus, they had to buy in. Well, now, because the best players cost a certain amount of money, and because they make a certain amount of money, they don't have to buy in. They're like, well, shoot, I need guys who are going to buy in. I heard a story from Troy. Troy's a mid-major D1. Troy's in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, right? And so the coach said their recruiting tactic, and this is like one of the dopest forms of leadership you'll ever hear, right? Is they get a recruit, they start recruiting a guy, they get him on campus, they talk to him on the phone, whatever. They ask him in passing, how do you feel about Waffle House? And if the kid don't like Waffle House, like, no, I don't eat a Waffle House, whoop-de-whoop, they stop recruiting him. They stop recruiting them. Like, they stop recruiting them. And he's like, even if we keep recruiting them, we never get them. Like, they never come here. And what he's saying is like, because of where Troy is, right? It's in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. Waffle House is like the best place to eat at. And so if you don't like Waffle House, you're not going to enjoy playing basketball at Troy. And it seems like a mundane, like a crazy type of, like, you determine a Division I scholarship off a Waffle House? Yes, because as a leader, I understand the character required from the people, from the young men that I want to lead. I know I'm not at Kentucky. I know I'm not at Michigan State. I'm not at KU. Like, I get I'm not at USC. I'm not at Florida or Miami. Like, I understand that. And so I know that I need a certain type of kid that can come here and play that will respond to my leadership. That is amazing leadership, right? And the more and more coaches are going to have to be like that. Tom Izzo this year, Michigan State had a great year. You know why? Izzo went 10 deep. Izzo ain't never went 10 deep. You know why Izzo went 10 deep? Because he got 10 guys making money. You know what I'm saying? He got to keep guys from transferring. You could go 7 deep and promise the 8th, 9th guy next year will be your year. You can't do that no more. I watched the tournament and they like, yeah, last year he was first team all Big Ten and he transferred. I'm like, what? You first team all Big Ten? So just imagine if the first team all Big Ten guy transferring, the 9th, 10th guy gone. And so you gotta go 10 deep. You gotta give guys opportunities to play because they are going to leave. And so I love Izzo. Izzo has completely altered his whole game plan as a coach. Izzo used to go 7 deep. I remember watching Michigan State, they was going 6.5 deep. He goes 10 deep because he's like, I got to keep these guys engaged. I got to keep these guys engaged. I got to get these guys to buy in. And you know who? And he tapped in. And it's so, Izzo's one of the best coaches in the history. And he tapped in to the NBA. You know, he got a phrase from Draymond Green, Michigan State alumni. Go to State's phrase is strength in numbers. Izzo said, I'm taking it. I'm using that. All summer, he been saying strength in numbers. Put on his shirt, strength in numbers. They did an interview with the players. They was like, yeah, strength in numbers. We bought in. They was like, in the summer, we were going 15 deep. Guys going at it. He said, so we knew we had to at least go 10 deep, right? And so the ideal that when you lose power, now you have to lead. And this, I mean, parents is a great example, right? When your kid is young, Tyler, elementary school, you got all the power. All the power. You tell them whatever to do. You could pick them up by their foot. You could do whatever you like, they small as whatever. When they get in high school, you get to lose some of that power, right? And then your leadership is exposed. Are you a good leader? Because high schoolers don't follow you because you said so, right? High schoolers don't do it. And they get to college, that power's over. That power's dead, right? And so now if you want them to listen to you, are you a good leader? And so I love how NILs and collective bargaining has challenged college coaches to develop as leaders and to not only lean on the ability to dictate, but now they have to lead. And for those of you who are in positions, managers, middle managers, run companies, I want to just warn you, these Gen Zers ain't going for that power stuff. They're just not going for it. Millennials, sometimes we think we need a job. Sometimes we don't. It just depends on which millennial you catch. Them Gen Zers, they don't care about none of that. They're not going for that power stuff. And so if you got to integrate Gen Zers into your workplace, into your workforce, you better be an excellent leader. And you better be working on developing as a leader. Because they're not going for that because I said so stuff. They're not working for dictators. They are working for leaders. And so if you haven't developed as a leader, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. You ain't going to be able to keep people. There's going to be a high turnover rate. People are going to quit all the time, and you're going to think it's because they don't want to work, but it's because they don't want to work for you. That's why they keep quitting, okay? And so I encourage you. It might be a new skill. It might be something you have to learn. That doesn't mean it's wrong. That doesn't mean that the young people are soft or that they're lazy. Might be true, but that's not what it means. All it means is you have to find a way as a leader to motivate, to encourage, to keep, to retain, to develop the next generation. And it's going to require some heavy lifting from you, but that's what leaders do. All right? So, hey, I hope you learned something this episode. I hope that you tapped in to Crew Excellence, so you can get the full interviews and all of that. And I hope I just hope y'all hanging out with me, man. Because honestly, you could be anywhere else, but you were here with me today, and it's been an honor and a privilege. As always, it's your host of The Ladder, Justin Strickland, man, and I'm out, man. Peace.